you can probably land that plane at under 140 knots, I believe. Maybe even 160, but that's high. Usually jets would be closer to that. But 115 knots, you can land the plane. No problem.
So essentially, the aircraft that flew over St. George, it flew over right when Tyler Robinson was turning himself in. I'm sure Baron's going to talk about it in great detail, but just to, make sure everybody's on the same page, the Hades jet flew right over Tyler Robinson turning himself in. And that jet is capable of putting text messages, Discord messages, etc., on on Tyler Robinson's phone. It scrambled out of California to get there on time. It flew faster than it's ever flown. And then instead of landing or even really pretending to, it just came down and circled that police station at a slow loitering speed right when those text messages were maybe going on to his phone. And then it took back off. So I'm sure Baron's going to explain it.
Yeah, but it's also one other curious detail was that it was very low, diagonally west of the sheriff's office, which places the aircraft in between the sheriff's office, i.e. the phone, and the cell towers. So the way this type of hack would work is for the aircraft to pretend to be a cell tower, take over the credentials of Tyler's for Discord, and then act as if the aircraft is Tyler. And the timing is quite exact also. And I remember I found this when I was speaking with you, Anna, back in April. And then I did send a tip to Baron. He might have found it himself too, of course. And that was the last thing I really found of it. But it's quite interesting that 8:57 p.m. it's at its lowest point on top of the sheriff's office, and 8:57 p.m. according to the first reports was the timestamp of the confession message.
Yeah,
another coincidence.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead. So this clip is about, I'd say, 7 minutes without the speed that I'm going to add on to it. So let's see what he says. He's going to, I figured I'll start it where he actually explains like how here, let's just go.
Plane that is used by TPUSA. That's the plane that had been at Fort Huachuca before Candace broke the news of Fort Huachuca. Just to recap where we are and why we're talking about it. Why is a plane frequently, I don't want to say exclusively used by TPUSA, but I want to say frequently used by TPUSA. Why is a plane used by TPUSA going to Fort Huachuca? Now, this is October 4th. The morning of October 4th, it flies into Fort Huachuca, and then it flies to Kalispell. So we know that Kalispell was a destination that's, we questioned whether it was related or not, right? We had this question of are these Kalispell planes somehow related to all this? Let me just go back and do it this way. On the day Charlie Kirk was taken out, there was a mysterious spy plane. Tail number was
and shout out to Baron Coleman. God bless you, bro.
in November N1098 Lima 1098L, and it is a Bombardier 6500 commercial plane, but it's being adapted for military use. And it's a spy plane. It's an ISR plane. The interesting thing about that is Fort Huachuca is sort of the nation's premier ISR training base. Intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It's high-tech spy stuff. And this 6500, this Axel 10 plane, this N1098L, these planes are being outfitted with some of the most sensitive military spy equipment ever known. The stuff you can't even imagine. It's able to intercept communications. It's able to deploy drones. It's able to do all kinds of crazy stuff. This is a fancy piece of equipment. On the day of the Big Bang, we know that this flight took place because we looked at it. If you've been watching a while, this is a little bit of recap. We knew this flight took place. It went from El Paso to Kalispell, and on its way up there, it did this little loop-de-loop. It was flying to Kalispell from El Paso on this little teal-looking line down here. It comes and takes a hard left. It goes over the southern part of Utah Lake. It flips back around, and it flies really low.
And that color actually, and I somehow I don't know how I didn't connect the two. Anna showed me the color. It shows the altitude. You can see down here. So as you get lower in altitude, you've got the color going more towards the yellow side of the spectrum, and then blue as it goes towards the higher altitude side of the spectrum.
That's exactly right. Yep. And so you can see right there when a plane actually lands, then that altitude would show, all the way down to orange, right? That deep, darker orange color. So you can see that this altitude, now this is technically the altitude. Well, it depends on Barron's setting if it's got the adjustment for the height of the actual location. But regardless, that shows you that that plane, it never actually landed, even though that is what we would have expected. If this was a normal flight and a normal day, that plane would have landed at least for 20 minutes, but that is not what happened. They quite literally kissed the runway and kept going, a California stop. And it's so unusual and uncommon, except for these jets. And that tells us that these jets were definitely up to something, and that's what they do.
Oh, I'm glad you said about the colors because I didn't put that together either. That's awesome.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of what we spend time on over on my channel is working through ADS-B stuff. I know that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's amazing how much information you can get when you go looking at these open source investigative tools. And I want more people to feel like they can, take a look at this stuff and kind of know what they're seeing. The super rich and the military, they really do treat jets like they're cars. So it's a really great way for us to all get to take a look, see where everybody's at, who is everyone with, where'd they go. I call it the digital stakeout. And yeah, that's a lot of what I do.
Okay,
Killing it.
awesome. Yes.
Killing it.
Really, really low. 114 knots it's flying. I mean, that's almost stall speed. If it went any slower, it would lose lift and fall out of the sky.
And to keep, so people understand, 114 knots for that plane is plenty slow enough to land it. You can probably land that plane at under 140 knots, I believe. Maybe even 160, but that's high. Usually jets would be closer to that. But 115 knots, you can land the plane, no problem. So kind of interesting.
And it's flying at like 100 or 200 feet off the deck. I know over here it says 5,100 feet, but you got to subtract the altitude. You got to subtract the altitude of Provo, which is like 5,000 feet in the air. And it's coming in and it makes what looks like an approach over Provo. Well, the interesting part of this is Utah Valley University campus right up here. So, I mean, it's just right there. It flies super low and slow right next to where the Charlie Kirk event's going to take place. And keep in mind what this plane can do. This is a very, very fancy plane. It's a very sensitive spy equipment. It can detect, I'll show you an article in a minute on what it can do. It can detect movement. It can intercept communications. It can, de-encrypt stuff that you think is encrypted that is being transmitted over the air. It's a very, very fancy piece of equipment. So that took place before the event. It took place about 9:16 a.m. About the time we're told Tyler Robinson showed up on campus, weirdly enough. Now, after the event,
You're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. So that was all while UVU event was going on, pre and I believe after, up to about 27 minutes, I think, after the shooting or whatever happened, the Big Bang was the closest it got, if I'm not mistaken. So now he's going to get into what happened after in regards to Tyler Robinson.
Let me add a quick thing about this timestamp. 9:16 a.m. in the morning, it was at this lowest point west of UVU, which happens to coincide also with the security setting up the tent at UVU, which commences at 9:20 a.m. Barron reported that about a week ago. And given that this aircraft has surveillance capabilities and is ground survey likely capabilities, it's an interesting coincidence as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Interesting.
the plane is flying back from Kalispell to El Paso. And it leaves Kalispell and it starts coming down and it flies down. And here it is again, just adjacent to Utah Valley University, which is right over here. Just adjacent to Utah Valley University. It's at 12:48 p.m. So just 25 minutes or so after the Big Bang. Tyler's on it. Charlie's on his way to the hospital. Exfil teams, if there was more than one person, they would be getting out of the area. It would be really nice to be able to have a plane with incredible technology on board that can bring in tremendous amounts of data using server racks that are actually on the plane in real time process all that data and see what's going on the ground. That's what these planes are used for in real life. And again, it's flying at 123 knots, just over stall speed at 4,900 feet. I mean, right on the deck. And then it does its little loop around, and then it leaves the area and goes back to El Paso. Now, we've seen these planes deployed in real life. They have one that flies back and forth over the DMZ, or just south of the DMZ in North Korea. And I watch it on ADSB all the time. You watch it, it goes out, it goes in towards China, and it does a big loop, and it comes out, and it goes out towards number, a different plane, but the exact same program. And I'm going to highlight it here for you. This is the day Tyler Robinson turns himself in to the Washington County Sheriffs. There's a planned trip from one of these.
I muted again. I said, I love it when he says, and I know other people feel this way. It's like, I like when he says that.
Yeah,
very
Very.
highly
He's great.
sensitive, fancy planes. This is September 11th, 2025. It leaves Ontario, California at 6:59 p.m. It lands in El Paso, Texas at 10:15 p.m. So it's in the air a little over 2 hours. I guess you lose an hour going that way. And we had looked at every single plane that had flown in and out of St. George in and around the time Tyler Robinson was turning himself in. Because we wanted to know, was anybody else on the ground? And this plane did not show up on the local landing scheme because it wasn't supposed to be in St. George, Utah. I'll show you the track of the plane, and then I'll show you some telemetry of the plane. Here is the track of that flight. It leaves Ontario, California here on the left, where the little yellow plane is, and it's headed this way, and it's going to land over here. So you would think, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? It's a line. So you would think it would fly this way, right? It would go from here over to here, but it doesn't. It goes up here. And we zoom in, and we say, what's up here? We can't tell. There's no labels on this map. This is tail number N2100L. It's the same type of plane. It's the same Hades program. So we go and we pull it up on the ADSB. You'll never believe where this plane went that night. This is while Tyler Robinson is at the station. This is St. George, Utah. This is where Tyler Robinson turned himself in. St. George, Utah. You can see if I back it out here, this plane leaves Ontario. It does not fly over here to El Paso where it's going. It flies northwest, and it does a little loop over St. George, Utah. And at one point, it's flying very low and very slow, just like its brother plane did the day before at the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's flying 126 knots at one point, and then it circles around. The entire circle, it arrives on the scene around 2:35 Zulu time, and it leaves the scene around 3:10 Zulu time. So it was there about 45 minutes in this area right here. You can chalk that up to coincidence. You can see how it loses altitude after it passes Las Vegas and holds that low altitude, and then drops a ton of altitude as it circles around St. George and then heads back out. You can say, oh yeah, well, lots of people fly from Los Angeles to El Paso via Utah. I mean, I guess you could make that claim, but you've got on your hands an unbelievable piece of equipment. I'm going to show you a little bit about what this plane is capable of. This is an announcement from the company that made it.
We've been through this now. He just goes through the capabilities of the plane, but yeah, I mean, I just can't find that as a coincidence.